Previously on the covenant of the ancient god of destruction. The village of Umuagu lived in peace after the death of Chike, and Alaogbaga, the god of destruction, remained silent, guarded in secret by a brotherhood known as the Watchers. For generations they kept a terrifying truth that one day the god would awaken and be born through the 10th generation of Chike's bloodline. Now, centuries later, that time has come. In the modern city of Owerri, Mike, a charismatic teacher and descendant of Chike, wears a mysterious black bead passed down through his lineage, unaware of the darkness it symbolizes. Meanwhile, Rita, a young seamstress cast out and alone, carries his unborn child, a child who may hold the spirit of the ancient god. As the Watchers race to prevent the prophecy from unfolding, one question remains. Will they identify the right child in time, or will Alaogbaga rise again to bring destruction to the world? The covenant has been awakened. The story continues now.
The motor park in Owerri was a storm of noise and heat. Minibuses honked endlessly, their conductors leaning out of doors, shouting destinations, Aba, PH, Abakaliki, while passengers hurried through the dust with bags balanced on their heads. In the middle of all the chaos, inside a bus marked Port Harcourt, a young woman named Rita sat quietly by the window. Tears rolled slowly down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly with the back of her hand, hoping no one had noticed. Her heart ached so much it felt heavy, like a stone sitting right in the middle of her chest. She was pregnant, alone, and full of sadness. Rita came from a very poor family. Her father was a careless man who spent more time drinking palm wine with his friends than providing for his family. Her mother was quiet and timid. She never stood up to her husband, not even when he was wrong. Just a few weeks ago, life had felt different. She had met Mike, a handsome school teacher who made her laugh and feel special. Rita was only a seamstress apprentice with little education, so when someone like Mike noticed her, she couldn't believe her luck. One evening, under the soft light of a street lamp, he had told her, "Rita, you're different. You have a good heart." She had believed him. But everything changed when she discovered she was pregnant. She went to Mike's house, her hands trembling. "Mike, I'm carrying your child," she whispered. His smile vanished. "My child? How do I know it's mine? You girls are all the same, always looking for someone to take care of you." Her heart broke into pieces. "But Mike, you know it's yours." "Get out of here, and don't come back." The worst was still to come. When her father found out, his face turned dark with anger. "You have brought shame into my house. I will not have a bastard child born under my roof. Leave now." Rita turned to her mother, eyes pleading. "Mama, please." Her mother looked down, tears in her eyes, but said nothing. She didn't defend her. She didn't say a word. That same day, Rita packed a small bag, just a few clothes and the little money she had saved from sewing. She bought a ticket to Port Harcourt, where a kind friend named Emeka had agreed to take her in. Emeka didn't have much. She lived in a small room in a noisy part of the city, but she had a good heart. As the bus engine rumbled to life, Rita looked out the dusty window. Her dream of opening her own sewing shop one day felt further away than ever. All she could think about now was survival, for herself and the baby growing inside her. She placed a hand gently on her stomach and whispered, "I will protect you, my child, no matter what." An elderly woman sitting next to her glanced over. "You all right, my daughter?" Rita nodded softly, forcing a weak smile. "Yes, Mama, I will be." The woman patted her hand. "God make way for you." As the bus pulled out of the park and onto the open road, Rita closed her eyes. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she held on to a small piece of hope. Maybe far from Owerri, she and her baby could find a new beginning. Mike's apartment was tidy, but carried the faint smell of cologne and yesterday's hangover. Evening light slanted through the window, painting the room in shades of orange and shadow. Mike stood in front of his mirror, adjusting the collar of his shirt. At 29, he was handsome, tall, with a confident smile that made him popular, especially among the female teachers at Government Secondary School, Owerri. He was getting ready to go out with his friend, Andrew. Nights like these were his favorite. No responsibilities, no worries, just fun. But as he sprayed perfume on his neck, his eyes lingered on his reflection a moment too long. A thought flickered in his mind. Where did Rita go? Just like that, her face appeared in his memory. Soft, trusting, and so easy to charm. He remembered meeting her near her tailoring shop. She was humble, poor, and looked at him as if he were a king. It didn't take much, a few sweet words, a little attention, and she was his. "You're so beautiful, Rita. A man like me is lucky to have a girl like you," he had told her one evening under the street lights. She had blushed and looked down, and he knew he had won. But then she told him she was pregnant. Mike's smile in the mirror faded. He knew the baby was his, but the thought of accepting it made his skin crawl. A child with a poor, uneducated seamstress. People would talk. His reputation as a respected teacher, a desirable bachelor, would be ruined. The other female teachers who flirted with him would look at him with pity. He couldn't let that happen. So he had denied it, told her he wanted nothing to do with her. And now she was gone, just like that. Good, he thought, turning away from the mirror. I hope she never comes back. A voice in his head whispered that it was cruel, but he buried it deep. This was survival. This was protecting the life he loved. His hands played with the object around his neck as he thought about Rita. A black bead necklace, polished smooth by generations of wear. He never took it off, not even to sleep. As he caressed it, he felt a familiar surge of pride. His father had told him it was a symbol of their family's greatness, passed down from their ancestor Chike, a man of power and influence. "We are not ordinary people," his father often said. "This bead reminds us of our strength." Mike didn't understand the full history, but he liked how it made him feel. Special, important, untouchable. He looked at himself one last time in the mirror. The bead rested against his chest, dark and gleaming. He smiled, ready for the night. His phone buzzed. A message from Andrew. "Make sure you wear something sharp. Plenty of fine girls waiting." Mike grinned. Whatever guilt he felt about Rita was now pushed far away. Tonight was for forgetting. Little did he know that the bead around his neck was more than just a symbol. It was a covenant, a promise, and its true purpose was only beginning to awaken. The sun was beginning to set as Barrister Emeka navigated his car through the busy streets of Owerri. His mind was racing, almost as fast as the okadas weaving through traffic. He had just left his law office, and the weight of the day still hung on his shoulders. But another, heavier weight occupied his thoughts, the monthly meeting of the Watchers. Emeka was a modern man, educated, sharp-suited, with a smartphone that never stopped buzzing. But he carried an ancient duty. As the newly appointed leader of the Watchers, he couldn't afford to be late, especially not tonight. He glanced at the photo tucked into his sun visor, a picture of his newborn son, Ikenna, and his wife, Ngozi. His heart swelled with love, but also with fear. The world he was bringing his son into was not as simple as it seemed. Soon the tall buildings of the city gave way to trees and familiar mud roads. He was entering Umuagu, his ancestral village. It was only 30 kilometers from Owerri, but it felt like a different world, a world where secrets lived in the soil and stories whispered on the wind. He parked his car behind a large iroko tree, hidden from the main path. The meeting place was an old, secluded hut near the back of the village, surrounded by bamboo and memory. As he approached, he saw faint candlelight glowing from within. Inside, 2 elderly men and 4 younger men about his age were already seated on low wooden stools. The 2 men were the oldest members of the Watchers, wise, stern-faced, with eyes that had seen generations come and go. They nodded silently as Emeka entered. "You are here, Emeka," said the oldest of them, Papa Agu. His voice was like dry leaves. "We were waiting." "I came as fast as I could. Work held me." Papa Agu gestured for him to sit. "Work is important, but this is destiny." The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft flicker of the palm oil lamp hanging from the rafters. Then Papa Agu spoke again. "We have confirmed it. Mike, the teacher in Owerri, is the 10th generation descendant of Chike. The bloodline has continued, and the child who will become Alaogbaga will be his firstborn." Emeka felt a chill, even in the warm evening air. He had heard the stories since he was a boy, tales of Chike's betrayal, the murder of his brother Ebuka, the blood bargain with the god of destruction. But Emeka was a lawyer. He dealt in facts, evidence, documents. For years he had believed it was all superstition, a myth to frighten children. "I remember when my father first told me, I laughed. I said, 'Papa, this is not real. Gods don't sleep inside people.' He shook his head. I thought it was a folk tale." Papa Agu's eyes narrowed. "And what changed your mind?" "Mike," Emeka answered without hesitation. "I saw him at a wedding in Owerri. He was wearing that black bead that has been passed down in his family. I introduced myself, tried to be friendly. When I asked about the bead, his whole demeanor changed. His eyes got distant. He said, 'I never take it off. It is part of me.'" Emeka paused. There was something in his voice, not entirely his own. The old men exchanged knowing glances. "The bead is not just a symbol, it is an anchor. It ties the spirit of Alaogbaga to the bloodline until the vessel is born." Emeka ran a hand over his face. It was still hard to fully accept, but too many things lined up. The history, Mike's obsession with the bead, the timing of the generations. "What must we do?" Emeka asked, almost afraid of the answer. Papa Agu's gaze was steady. "You must get closer to Mike. Become his friend. Learn everything about his life, his women, his plans, his intentions. Does he want children? Does he plan to marry? We must know when the firstborn comes. We cannot afford to miss it." Emeka nodded slowly. The mission was clear, but difficult. Mike was a shallow, proud man. Getting close wouldn't be easy. "And if we find the child?" Emeka asked, almost afraid of the answer. Papa Agu's gaze was steady. "Then we must be ready. To protect the world, we may have to make a great sacrifice." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. Emeka thought of his own son, Ikenna, sleeping peacefully at home. What kind of world would he inherit if the Watchers failed? He stood up, determination hardening inside him. "I will do what must be done." As he left the hut and walked back to his car, the night felt darker, the stars more distant. He was no longer just a lawyer, a husband, a father. He was a watcher, and the future depended on what he did next.
The club was called Sparkles, and it lived up to its name. Flashing lights cut through a haze of cigarette smoke and perfume, while the heavy bass of a popular Afrobeat song made the floor vibrate. Mike and his friend Andrew had a prime table near the dance floor.
surrounded by bottles of expensive beer and the laughter of two women they had just met. Mike was in his element. He threw his head back and laughed at something one of the women said, his white teeth gleaming under the strobe lights. He loved nights like this. The attention, the music, the freedom. No papers to grade, no parents to please, no consequences. Andrew leaned in close, his words slightly slurred from one too many shots. "Mike, my brother, I have news." Mike grinned, raising his glass. "What, you finally got a real job?" Andrew shook his head, a serious look crossing his face, or as serious as he could manage while swaying to the music. "No, man, I'm done with all this." He gestured around the club. "I'm going to propose to Amara." Mike stared for a second, then burst out laughing. He clapped Andrew on the shoulder. "Good one, you had me going. Which Amara? The one from the bank or the one that sells fabrics?" "I'm serious," Andrew insisted, though a tipsy smile played on his lips. "The one from the bank. She's different. She doesn't play games. She wants a family." Mike's laughter died down as he realized Andrew wasn't joking. He looked at his friend as if he just suggested jumping into the river. "Engage? You? Mr. I don't do breakfast? Andrew, have you lost your senses?" "Why not?" Andrew challenged, taking a swig of his beer. "You think we can do this forever? Party every night? Chase women until we're old and gray?" "Yes," Mike said without hesitation. "That's the dream. No stress, no responsibility. Look around." He pointed at the dancing crowd, the women smiling their way. "This is living. Why would you chain yourself to one woman for life?" Andrew shrugged. "Maybe I'm tired, Mike. Maybe I want something real." Mike shook his head, a smirk returning to his face. "Well, you can be tired and real. Me? I'm just getting started." He flagged down a waiter for another round. The conversation was over as far as he was concerned. The music got louder, the lights flashed brighter, and Mike lost himself in the rhythm, the laughter, the moment. He didn't see the darkness gathering elsewhere. He didn't feel the weight of the black bead against his chest, a chain he didn't know he was already wearing. For him, the night was still young, and the future was a problem for another day.
Sunlight streamed through the half-open curtains, painting stripes of gold across Mike's rumpled bedsheets. He groaned, one hand moving to shield his eyes from the brightness. His head throbbed gently, a familiar reminder of last night's excess. As his vision cleared, he noticed the woman sleeping beside him, smooth skin, braided hair, a stranger whose name he couldn't quite remember. Quietly, he slipped out of bed, pulling on a pair of shorts. The apartment was still, filled with the soft, sleeping breath of the woman and the distant hum of soft traditional music waking up outside his window. He walked into the small kitchen, poured a glass of water and drank it slowly, his mind drifting back to Andrew's words from the night before. "I'm going to propose to Amara." Mike shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. Andrew settling down? It still felt like a joke. But as he stood there in the quiet morning, the idea lingered. Was it really so unthinkable? If Andrew could do it, maybe he could too. Not now, of course, but someday. Two faces floated into his mind. First, there was Nika, the fellow teacher from his school. She wasn't the most beautiful woman he ever met, but there was a gentleness in her eyes that he liked. She was kind, dependable. She loved him, truly loved him, and he knew it. She'd bring him food when he was busy, listen to him complain about his long days, and look at him like he was something precious. With Nika, he would be comfortable, safe. Then there was Adiora, the businesswoman from Lagos. She was sharp, glamorous, and rich. She drove a sleek car and wore clothes that cost more than his monthly salary. She had made it clear that she was interested in him, and that if he married her, his financial struggles would be over. No more cramped apartment, no more counting money at the end of the month. With Adeora, he would be powerful, respected. He was still weighing these two futures when a soft voice came from the bedroom doorway. "You never take it off, do you?" The woman he'd brought home was leaning against the doorframe, wrapped in a sheet. Her eyes were fixed on the black bead resting against his chest. Mike touched it almost without thinking. "No, never." "Why? What is it?" she asked, stepping closer. "It's from my father, and his father before him. It reminds me of where I come from. My family, we are not ordinary people." She smiled, reaching out to touch the bead. "It's beautiful." But as her fingers brushed against it, Mike felt a strange, sudden chill, a whisper of something cold and old that made him pull back slightly. He covered his discomfort with a smile. "It's part of me," he said, though he didn't fully understand why he could never remove it. He didn't know that it was more than memory keeping the bead around his neck. It was a promise, a covenant, a chain he could not break until his first child drew breath.
Meanwhile, in a small, dimly lit room in a crowded part of Port Harcourt, Rita sat on the edge of a narrow bed. Her friend, Nkechi, handed her a cup of tea. "Don't worry," Nkechi said softly. "You and your baby are safe here." Rita placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the gentle swell beneath her palm. She smiled weakly, grateful for the kindness. She had no idea that the life growing inside her was more than just a child. It was a destiny, a promise made long ago in blood and shadow. And as she sat in that quiet room, far from Mike and his choices, the future was already stirring, waiting to be born.
And so the clock is ticking. The watchers watch Mike's every move, unaware that far away in Port Harcourt, Rita carries his first and only child, a life that may well be the vessel of an ancient god. Will they uncover the truth in time, or will Mike's careless choices lead him to marry another and place the cursed bead around the neck of the wrong heir? The fate of generations hangs in the balance, and one mistake could awaken a destruction unlike any the world has ever seen. The prophecy is in motion, and every moment counts. Subscribe and turn on your notifications now so you don't miss what happens next in this heart-pounding tale of fate, fear, and forgotten gods.